What metrics should you be focusing on for incoming rookie quarterbacks? All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, how's it going today?
It's going great. We have an awesome guest, though, man. Let's just dig in. We haven't had a guest in a while. I love it.
It has been quite a while. We've got one of our favorites who's been a frequent guest way back to the Dynasty Blueprint days.
Yeah.
We've got our buddy, Travis May. We used to say Travis May of DLF, Travis May of RotoViz. We've changed things. This is Travis May from Mojo. Travis, how's it going, man?
Going great in the middle of NFL draft season, working on Mojo's sports stock market. We got like 100 players to keep track of that are draft eligible. So it's been quite the challenge, but it's just a blast, and being able to do this full time now and just fully invest has been a joy. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Glad to have you back for sure. We're going to talk some rookies today. We're going to talk some veterans as well. We've got lots of topics to cover. But Travis, you did make the move to Mojo, and just for our listeners that aren't familiar with what you guys do over there, just kind of give us the 30-second pitch here.
Yeah, you can invest in sports like athletes like their stocks. So essentially, a player does well on the field, their stock price is probably going to go up. Like you can get on players like imagine getting in on Tom Brady when he was a rookie. He was like $3 or so. He finished with $170 accrued of Mojo value. So, you just 50 or 60x, no big deal. Yeah, wow. But fun way to invest in athletes. And so NFL, college, we just added NBA, adding baseball soon, so which is my other passion. So being able to get in on that is just a lot of fun.
Nice. Very cool. And you guys is it still New Jersey only, or have we branched out?
It's still in New Jersey only, but we are. I'm not sure how close, but I know we're very close in terms of expanding and adding states. And so eventually we'll be everywhere. But right now you got to be physically present in New Jersey. But I've had a lot of people just reference and say, "Hey, I just download the app and use it as like almost a player value help in my dynasty leagues." So
makes sense.
That's helped a lot of people for sure.
Very cool. And if you check it out right now, when it gets to your state, you will be ready to invest and to hopefully find some nice players to target there. Well, Travis, we're gonna talk, as I said, about some of the incoming rookies. I know you're always kind of on top of your game, and even though you're not necessarily producing the same type of fantasy content, you're still at the forefront of studying these incoming players as part of your role there at Mojo. So let's start with the quarterback position. I'm going to try to still be friends with you after this episode, but you've gone hard after my guy, Will Levis, this offseason. And I definitely get it. I get it a little bit. We'll see if Will Levis comes up in this conversation. But what I teased at the top of the show, you've talked about some quarterback metrics that you're really focusing on and that are starting to pay off and really see some trends with. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's my job now to make sure that our pricing makes sense and that we're trying to predict these NFL futures more accurate than ever. So having the right metrics is more important than ever for me. It was one thing to say I'm like hashtag, analytics guy or whatever, or film takes guy. I like to say I'm in both worlds, but some easy ones that you can dive into that aren't, over the top, difficult to kind of formulate yourself. EPA per play. I mean, that's growing in popularity, but expected points added per play. And not only just overall offensively, but splitting it between rushing contributions and passing contributions to give you an idea of where a player succeeds, and hoping to ideally clear certain thresholds in both to translate to NFL success. That's a big one. Another one that's widely accessible is adjusted yards per attempt. That has shown to be sticky in terms of predicting future draft outcomes. But I take that a little bit further, and I adjust for things like play action percentage, jet motion percentage, average depth of target, a few other schematic variables, and get a new version of adjusted yards per attempt and completion percentage over expectation that I call scheme adjusted pass efficiency. And that creates what I've found to be the most predictive single passing metric that there is in terms of predicting capital. For example, like in the last 2 drafts, there hasn't been a single quarterback selected that had a peak season come in below the 80th percentile in that particular metric. And your boy Will Levis comes in just under that, and they're like on the 80th percentile mark. So he's like, he's going to profile as, like the worst profile to get drafted in the past couple of years, just from a pure passing perspective. But, maybe there are some things like his biceps or his bananas or coffee with mayo that are more redeeming qualities that can get him drafted earlier. That's made him a first rounder. I don't know.
Oh man. I don't know if that's what did it, but again, we're gonna try to stay friends here.
But beyond just passing, it's really easy to do the math with just rushing yard market share, the percentage of your team's rushing yards. That's one thing that has been predictive as well in terms of fantasy value and just being mobile enough to fit today's game. That's the last one I look at, and that's easy for people to kind of just glean themselves. There are a few other nerdy measures to adjust, but just to keep it surface level, rushing yard market share, just percentage of your team's rushing yards. Like you're looking for 10% at least, ideally. The studs, all the difference making QBs had at least 15% of their team's rushing yards in their peak season. So yeah,
so
hopefully
like
Josh
Allen or Lamar is way over that.
Yeah, Josh Allen in college had way more than that at Wyoming.
Okay.
Even like Daniel Jones, so like Josh Allen and Daniel Jones had trash passing profiles, but they more than cleared all the rushing metrics, implying that they're well above and beyond, athletic enough to succeed in today's game if they have the magic pill, which is apparently Brian Dable.
No, that helps too.
Yep, that helps too. So it seems like it's really been hard from a dynasty, from a fantasy standpoint, to separate CJ Stroud and Bryce Young through this pre-draft process. Everybody kind of seems to have a favorite there. And certainly Anthony Richardson has kind of put himself in that conversation as well, while my guy Levis has kind of fallen off. So just between those top 3 guys that we're looking at and kind of referencing some of the numbers you've talked about, how does that shake out, and who is your favorite out of those 3 based on these numbers?
My least favorite is by a long shot Anthony Richardson. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud they just check all the boxes from a passing accuracy standpoint. They're not necessarily immobile like Anthony Richardson is, but from a film charting standpoint, from EPA per play, scheme adjusted pass efficiency, just about everything you want to throw into a hat that means something from a passing perspective, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are far, far superior. Anthony Richardson, like his EPA per play gets cleaned up by a few huge plays, like his LSU run that everyone throws out there all the time, and a few bigger deep plays off of play action. I think a lot of people know he's one of the best quarterbacks off of play action, which is great, but play action in and of itself artificially boosts efficiency by anywhere from 10 to 15%. So you're supposed to be good there. His profile almost gets fixed by a few big plays, but when you take like a half dozen or 10 of his best plays out of his career, he becomes one of the worst prospects of all time at the position. So it's really rough analytically to get pumped or confident, at least when it comes to Richardson.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there enough to separate or to give you a favorite between Young and Stroud, or are you happy with either one of those guys you could land in a dynasty league?
No, I'm really happy with both, just frankly. I by a hair barely prefer Stroud just because he fits, the more stereotypical measurables, and I have less questions in that regard. But they're both athletes that didn't really even scratch the potential of their athleticism in college, frankly, whether they were instructed to do so or not. They just didn't even use their legs that much. But I mean, Stroud, like his first play in college was like almost 50-yard rushing touchdown. So like I know he can do it. Northwestern game, or no, it was like maybe that one in the Indiana game. Like he actually had to use his legs some. Like there's proof of concept in a small sample that they can add some value with their legs, and so they're definitely 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, totally makes sense. When we come back, we're going to talk some running backs and some wide receivers as well. We've got more to talk about with Travis right after this.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. There's everything you want. Player points, rebounds, assists. I mean, it's more than you can imagine. And, another thing you can do, too, is do a same-game parlay so you can combine your bets for a bigger payout. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Travis, let's move over to the running back position. And we've talked about it a little bit on here. You have certainly noticed it as well. I know the running back landscape is really changing in the NFL. And I don't know if you agree with this or if you think this is a big cause, but I keep pointing back to that class of 2017 that really changed. It changed Dynasty. It changed the NFL, in my opinion, with the influx of running backs that came from that class. And now many of those guys are hitting that wall. I mean, we're talking about a couple of them even being cut candidates. Joe Mixon could be cut. Dalvin Cook could be cut in the coming days or weeks. So again, maybe for a negative reason now, the class of 2017 is changing the running back position. I really thought this current class might just pick up where those 2017 guys left off and we wouldn't miss a beat from a dynasty standpoint, but I'm starting to have some doubts about that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's still very much a significant chance that it does, they just come in and replace that class, because there's like 15 guys that all could be in the mix for day two capital.
Yeah,
at this
there's
point.
a lot.
Like there's 1, 2, 3 like truly difference making early round guys that like could be special. But then beyond that, there's so many that could stick in the right opportunity, and there's all shapes and sizes and speeds. And so, yeah, it could be just like that 2017 class. And we kind of need it to be, because we just saw 2020, 2021, 2022 that were kind of gross-ish, or at least shallow. Like even though a few guys we thought were hits might not be. And so we need it, because if it's not, it could be like you guys both remember this, like a decade ago. I think it was 2012, 2013, 2014. We basically just had this drought of really bad prospects coming in, and that led to like the Devontae Freeman 2015 RB1 season. Like we were just no one was good left,
Wow.
But
those are some memories. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But it just reminds me of like, remember before that though, like when we had the end of like LaDainian Tomlinson's career, the end of like Jamal Lewis's career, like 2008, 2009, like the best running back seasons ever. And what happened was we had this aging group that was, on their way out, and like 1 or 2 classes of like, Adrian Peterson and Marshawn Lynch. And we had like Matt Forte, Chris Johnson came in, Jamal Charles came in, all these guys. It was just the perfect, combination of classes. And we might be on the tipping point of something like that, because it was the leftover years of this amazing group of running backs mixed in with a youth infusion. And if this class is the youth infusion, we're already seeing the league invest in the run a little bit more so in just the last couple of years. And we're seeing an uptick in rushing efficiency. So that leads to more running backs that are good. Like we're seeing a deeper number of like 40 or 50 running backs now that we haven't seen since 2008. With high level elite efficiency versus other years of like the mid 2010s. So this is really this season, this class has so much pressure on it, because it could be a tipping point in a positive direction, or if it turns out to be full of duds, we could be in for a bad half decade at the position. So it's just really it's a really fun class, because it's going to define the next few years.
It definitely has the quantity, though, as you kind of alluded to. There's a lot of guys that could hit.
Yeah, that has really made it, the depth of the class, which is a good thing. It's made it tough in this pre-draft process, right? I mean, we have Bijan, we have Gibbs. Seems like most people have settled in with Charbonnet as the 3. And then after that, I mean, from 4 to 15, 16.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like I mean, mix them up and kind of throw them in any order you want right now. And we'll get some of those questions answered on draft weekend, of course, but that makes those pre-draft takes really tough. I mean, I know I have a couple of favorites. Abanikanda is a guy I've been, chasing as much as I can, which mostly just means mock drafts. I don't have any drafts that we actually hold before, or any leagues that we hold the draft before the NFL draft, unfortunately. But in that wide open range tier, I guess we could say tier 3 of the rookie running backs. Do you have any favorites that you've been focused on so far, Travis?
Absolutely. Izzy Abanikanda, because he's going to be 20 years old for most of his rookie season. And so if he gets even round 4 capital, he's going to be interesting because he's not, your power back that breaks all the tackles necessarily. Could he improve his form, his vision? That's yes, but he's incredibly athletic. He's incredibly young. And his season last year was incredible. They leaned on him in a big way. He only had less than 100 yards rushing twice, had one game where he had over 300 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, he can carry a feature back's workload. But beyond him, like, I really love Tank Bigsby. He had the pedigree coming in. He's got, he improved his athletic testing at his pro day. I think he can, he has verified elite tackle breaking and missed force tackle ability. And so he's really fun. I think he does everything well. Auburn almost ruined him because Auburn is, a dumpster fire, but they do that to just about everyone. But I definitely like him. And Zach Evans, man.
If I say Zach Evans, I almost was about to ask you about. I'm warming up to this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, he was rated higher than Bijan Robinson coming in as a recruit until the last second because he just couldn't keep his head on straight. After the transfer, people kind of forgot about him, and he got out touched by a true freshman last year, but the true freshman might be a first round pick in his own right one day. But man, like, I think back to his 2021 season, in his first 6 games, he was like averaging almost 8 yards a touch. He was on pace for like 1,600 yards from scrimmage, and then he got hurt. Like, what could have been with that? So those 3 are really intriguing in terms of the round 3 possible projections.
Very good stuff there. Hopefully some of these guys, maybe it's Tank Bigsby, maybe it's Zach Evans, maybe it's Izzy Abanikanda. It certainly will be Bijan Robinson. We need these guys to fill some of the holes, some of the gaps around the NFL, and certainly on our dynasty rosters as well. When we come back, we're going to finish off the conversation with Travis, talking some wide receivers, and he's got some rookies that you will want to hear about.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. I mean, you've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought you'd make a good GM, which, trust me, I've spent most of my life, looking through that perspective, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a historic dynasty. And I've told you as many times, I grew up wanting to be a scout, a GM, and this game would have been phenomenal for me as a kid, and I love it now. So you get, it's very, definitely try this app out. You don't even need Wi-Fi to play it, so with Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, which I think is awesome, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries, terms, all that stuff as well. Navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline, play on the go as you want and when you want to. So our listeners on Locked On Dynasty get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, all caps, in the game store. That's Locked On. So make sure you check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more, join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we're back with Travis May from Mojo. Travis, we talked about, as we were prepping for the show, some topics we would discuss, and you told me you had 5 rookie wide receivers with almost 0 questions. And I'm certainly intrigued to hear these guys. I think I know a couple of them, but I don't know if I can get to 5 that I feel that confident in. The depth of the wide receiver class. We talked about how great the depth of the running back class is. I don't think it's there at wide receiver, but you love at least 5 of these guys. I've got to hear your 5 favorite rookie wide receivers that you are so confident with.
Well, you got to kick it off with Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Sure.
He didn't get, just 1, but 2 like 15 catch performances in 2021, set a bunch of records, was allegedly better than Olave and Wilson, of course, according to them in college. Definitely like him as wide receiver 1. After that, you got Jordan Addison, you got Zay Flowers, and then Josh Downs and Marvin Mims. Maybe there's some size questions with a few of these guys, but I think, those 5 to me, analytically and mixed in with some film analysis, I just don't have very many questions. Size, okay. But beyond that, I'm not sure what there isn't to like about those 5 guys.
Okay, you're making me feel good because, I got the chance to go to the NFL Combine this year. I got to sit in and kind of move around the room when these prospects were being interviewed. And I was blown away by what I heard from Marvin Mims. And, I think, Travis, you play in Devy leagues. I play in Devy leagues. And I think sometimes that's certainly it's kind of a head start to the dynasty rookie process. And these are players that you're aware of. And if you're in a deep enough Devy league, you're tracking them as they're still in high school. I mean, you can kind of go as deep with it as you want. And Marvin Mims was a player that if you're in Devy leagues, you've known about him for years because he's been productive at Oklahoma since he stepped foot on campus. And I think sometimes in the same way that we ignore a average talent in the NFL that just kind of hangs around, we do the same thing with guys like Marvin Mims. And he never had that huge breakout. He was never a Biletnikoff, award winner or in the running for that even. And we just kind of written him off as just a guy. And I don't think that's the case. I love hearing him show up in this group of JSN, Addison, Downs, and Flowers. So what have you seen from Mims that makes you so confident with him and to put him in this group?
Well, I was just talking to Stefan on our College to Canton pod this week, just about like the types of prospects that actually hit. And the most common that hits is just like that kid that was in the pipeline early. Yeah. Like the kid that got hyped up early, that went to the right high school, had the right coaching. Maybe they played 7v7 for like 3+ years at this point. Like that's the kind of kid that gets put in the pipeline and succeeds. And Marvin Mims is exactly that person. He went to a top school in Texas, and I think he capped out it was about 2,600 receiving yards in one high school season coming in before he made it into college, and was already a top 100 kid coming in. So we knew he was an elite level difference making talent. Goes to Oklahoma at a time where they're stacked at the wide receiver position. He shows up and is immediately productive. Not, like 30% of the offense year 1 type stuff. That just doesn't happen in Lincoln Riley's offense. Like at the time he was still there. And then he has a decent year 2. Not what we wanted it to be, because the whole offense was imploding with Spencer Rattler at the helm. So they switch quarterbacks and give it to, a future first rounder, Caleb Williams. But it's his first action, so it's imperfect at times, and all the other offensive weapons are struggling, like 10 yards per reception, 9 yards per reception, 11 yards per reception. And then you look at Mims, and he's averaged over 20 yards a catch, because he's that deep threat that wins downfield, and Caleb Williams immediately trusts him. Now, enter this year, he loses that best quarterback in the nation and has his best year ever, 1,100 yards this year, big time breakout in year 3. He hasn't disappointed at any point throughout his career. and shows up to the combine, tests incredibly well, jumps through the roof, like the sub 4.4 speed. Like, it's just, what are we doing here if we don't like Marvin Mims?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. He spoke about that in his interview. He talked about, just the struggles of playing with multiple quarterbacks and under multiple coaching staffs after Riley left for USC. And, regardless of all those changes that he went through, as you said, he continued to produce. He talked about the versatility of playing inside and outside.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those trends that is huge in the NFL right now. You hit on it a little bit, is his deep threat ability, and using that slot guy as your deep guy is something the NFL loves to do right now. So I think Mims is going to be drafted a lot earlier than maybe we expect. He's not going to be a first rounder, but I think he's certainly locked in as a day 2 pick. And that's going to be good enough to get him into the late first round of those one quarterback dynasty rookie drafts, or second round of your Superflex rookie drafts.
Yeah. And that kind of player is a value, because I have questions when it comes to Jalen Hyatt, when it comes to Quentin Johnston. And so, I'd be glad to take as a consolation prize a player that might be better than both.
So you would say these 5, JSN, Addison, Downs, Flowers, and Mims, you would say they're all safe, but still have some of the same upside that we see with Hyatt types and Johnston. Is that fair
Definitely.
to say?
I believe so. Absolutely. Because yes, they have size questions, but you look at all 3 of the other guys that are undersized in the list that I mentioned: Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs. Josh Downs has some of the best contested catch marks in the country, let alone in this class. And so, yes, he's undersized, but that has not held him back. And teams know the ball's going to him, and he still wins. Zay Flowers, 2 out of the last 3 years, led the ACC in receiving touchdowns. Come on, man. Like he's good. And the year prior to this season, Jordan Addison had 17 receiving touchdowns. He doesn't play like he's 173 pounds. So I think we overthink it sometimes when it comes to the size thing. Let's look at the production from day 1 from Jordan Addison, being a Biletnikoff winner, having success in 2 different offenses, 2 different quarterbacks. And man, it's just no brainer. And Zay, he didn't have the analytical peak that we want to see in terms of our spreadsheets. He checks the box enough in that regard that I don't have many questions with him either.
You talked about a lot of different pieces that you look for when analyzing these incoming rookie wide receivers. I want to ask you, because a lot of those boxes were checked by Kayshon Boutte. The early production, the elite profile coming out of high school as a recruit, certainly had those 2, and things went bad pretty quickly. So the dynasty community seems to be kind of split on Boutte as a prospect. And I just want to get your take on him as we wrap up here.
Absolutely. So, he came in as a 5-star. He was supposed to hit. He looked like the heir apparent to the LSU wide receiver being a first-round pick dynasty, just being the next man up there. And he was on his way to an unreal season a couple of years ago. I had 9 touchdowns in his first few games. It seemed it was ridiculous. His 2 freshman season, the last few games there, he was dominant too. Looked like he was the real deal. And then, he has the injury. He misses time, apparently has surgery, and it doesn't take. So he has to have another surgery on his ankle. And then this year, he doesn't look like himself and is outperformed by a true sophomore in Malik Neighbors. And we all of a sudden have all these questions. Is he ever going to be the same with his post-injury? And then he has off-field concerns that are just frankly weird. I think it just comes down to a team looking at his early potential, going, look, if we get that guy, he's worth a mid-round pick. Or he's got 2-3 red flags, health and off-field. He's off our board. I think that's going to be the case for some teams. And so the draft capital is going to say it all, unfortunately, for him. He could drop way down and be like a round 5 guy, or be a top 60 pick. Like the range of outcomes for him are just probably the widest in the class.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it does feel like it's trending towards that 5th, 6th rounder. I even saw someone mention the other day he might not even get drafted. I think the upside alone is enough to get him drafted, but
Mhm.
the strikes are piling up against Kayshon Boutte right now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So sad because he was so good. Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. Well, Travis, thanks so much for joining us. Again, one of our favorites, multiple time guest here on the show, and we're glad to get you back on here. Before we wrap up today, tell our listeners where they can find you and your work.
Well, yeah, if you want to hop on Twitter at FF_Travis M, you can tell me I'm wrong about your favorite player. If you're a Will Levis fan like Ryan, you can come find me there. It's fine. You can check out my College to Kenton podcast with Stefan Leco on our own feed, but also RotoViz Radio. And then, of course, anytime we have like a big player release, like after the draft, we're going to be adding like literally hundreds of college football players that you can invest in. And so I'll write up, something there so you can find my content at Mojo, but don't do much content game as I'm working on the market full time now, but it's just unreal. I get to do this full time and just, create something that, I was saying it earlier, but like my grandparents definitely still don't understand, but they'll at least act like it, they're nice. They act interested. It's cool, but
they play along.
Yeah, man. But and thank you, by the way, because I know you gave me all sorts of opportunities at DLF earlier back in the day. So appreciate you, man. Really enjoy
Glad to do it.
Talking to you anytime I can. So
for sure. Well, please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. I'm Ryan MC23, and we'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.